Russia's attack on Ukraine and its use of banned weapons in civilian areas has triggered new fears since the Cold War. The latest assessment of Russian nuclear military capability estimates that as of early 2022, Russia has a stockpile of approximately 4,477 nuclear warheads, and nearly 6,000 if their retired warheads are included. The USA maintains a similar inventory of 5,500 warheads, with 3,800 of those rapidly deployable. Vladimir Putin has recently put Russia's nuclear deterrent forces on high alert, citing aggressive statements by NATO and tough financial sanctions. The world is therefore arguably now closer to nuclear conflict. So what would a full-scale nuclear exchange look like, and would it be survivable? In this video, we are going to look at some of the things we can do to protect ourselves in a nuclear war scenario. There have only ever been 2 nuclear weapons deployed in combat. These were back in 1945 during World War II. The first event occurred when the United States Army Air Forces dropped a uranium gun-type device codenamed Little Boy on the city of Hiroshima, killing 70,000 people. The second event, 3 days later, was again the United States Army Air Forces, only this time it was a plutonium implosion-type device codenamed Fat Man that was dropped on the city of Nagasaki. This explosion killed 39,000 people. In total, around 109,000 people were killed in these 2 explosions. These days, nuclear weapons have grown far more powerful. Today's warheads can inflict thousands of times more damage. But it's not just the explosion itself that does all the damage. Let's take a look at what exactly happens when a nuclear explosion takes place. A nuclear weapon would be set to target the most populated areas like a crowded city. Aside from the initial explosion to start with, there would be an immense shadow over the city due to the mushroom cloud. The mushroom cloud is made up of debris, smoke, and usually condensed water vapor. The shadow would subsequently drop the temperature in the city, forcing warmer air to rush in and violently destroy countless buildings. The radioactive ash and dust would liquefy, resulting in black rain pouring down on the city. On top of all this, there is the blinding light, bright enough to blind anyone up to 13 miles away on a clear day, and up to 53 miles away on a clear night. There are numerous fires caused by the intense heat of the explosion. Metal, fabric, plastic, and clay would ignite, melt, or blister. The intense heat would set gas lines, fuel tanks, and power lines on fire, and an electromagnetic pulse created by the explosion would knock out most computers, cell phones, and communication towers within several miles. Traveling much farther than the fireball, a colossal pressure wave would hurtle forth faster than the speed of sound, generating winds up to 500 miles per hour. The shockwave would demolish the flimsiest buildings and strip the walls and roofs off stronger structures. It would snap utility poles like toothpicks and rip up trees, fling people through the air, turn brick, glass, wood, and metal into deadly projectiles. A blast in Times Square, combined with the fireball, would carve a crater 50 feet deep at the center of the explosion. The shockwave would reach a diameter of nearly 3.2 miles. After the explosion and shockwave has passed, there will be the radioactive material that was propelled into the upper atmosphere, falling from the sky, more commonly known as nuclear fallout. So how could anyone possibly survive this kind of attack? If you are planning for nuclear attack well beforehand, and hopefully will never need it, plan for the largest bomb there is, Russia's 100 megaton Tsar Bomba, which is 3,000 times more powerful than the Little Boy. With this size bomb, you would need to be at least 620 miles or 1,000 kilometers away from any crowded city in your country to be naturally clear. Thankfully, most modern nuclear weapons fall somewhere between the 1 and 200 kiloton range, or roughly 1/250th the size of the Tsar Bomba, and are designed to be more precise surgical attacks. If you have done your homework, mapping out possible target sites such as cities and military bases, you would be able to disappear to a remote location. Next thing is making sure you are protected when you get there. The best bet for survival is to seek shelter in a building, but not just any building. Obviously, if you are preparing in advance, you would have time to build a fallout shelter. A shelter of this kind needs to protect you from radioactive particles and blast impact. The best material for this job is compacted dirt. Building down to a depth of about 10 feet will provide ample protection. Any deeper may make it hard to dig out in the event of a collapse. Concrete is your best option for the material used for your shelter, and an escape hatch is always good for a potential exit route in an emergency. Try to build a shelter as small as possible, around 9 feet squared of space per person, some room for a composting toilet, sleeping area, and food, water stash. There is no real way of knowing when it is safe to emerge from a shelter after a nuclear attack, but most estimates suggest a maximum stay of 14 days. Enough time for initial radiation to fall to relatively safe levels. So it goes without saying, you will need food, ideally pre-prepared survival food or military rations which will provide all the sustenance you will need to survive. If you run out of food, most people could survive for a long time, but when it comes to water, that is not the case. A recent recommendation in the event of an emergency was half a gallon of water per person per day. Medication supplies are a must. Bandages, painkillers, antibiotics are all things that you are unlikely to be able to get a hold of even after you emerge from the shelter. With the darkness and cold that nuclear war brings, you are going to be needing plenty of warm and waterproof clothing, so make sure you keep a supply in the shelter as you really won't have time to be sorting through your wardrobe. A wind-up or battery-powered radio is a way of having contact with the outside world. Obviously, electric is out of the question as there won't be any, so make sure you have plenty of batteries. A lantern to provide light, a fire extinguisher which does exactly what it says, and a Geiger counter would be useful to determine the safety of the world outside. If you haven't had the opportunity to prepare for a nuclear war, a conventional 1- or 2-story house will provide next to no protection. Your best bet is to seek shelter in a basement or a subway station. Failing that, and a building is your only option, stay away from the windows and walls. If you can stay indoors and keep well covered for at least 3 days, your chances of survival start increasing. Do you have any tips for staying safe in a nuclear war? Let us know in the comments, and please like this video if you've enjoyed it. If you want to see more videos like this one, then subscribe to Brain Impact for more. Thanks for watching.